Mr Acting Deputy President, I rise to speak on the Australian Organ and Tissue Donation and Transportation Authority Amendment New Governance Arrangements Bill 2016. As my colleague Senator Siewert has already outlined, the Greens will be supporting this legislation in line with the recommendations of the independent review. I want to start by just noting how timely it is that I'm speaking on this bill tonight, because right at this very moment, a very dear old friend of mine is currently probably receiving a kidney donation. He and his partner Kathy have been part of the Australian Paired Kidney Exchange program. Kathy had a kidney removed this morning, and I'm told that the operation went well, and Ian was due to receive his kidney at 5 o'clock this afternoon. They were complex, I think, 4 pairs of people that were going to be involved, and kidneys being flown across the country so that people could be getting this gift of life. Ian's kidneys were failing, and it was, to be able to receive a new kidney, I know, is just going to be life-giving for him. So it's very appropriate, because we know that the issues of organ donations are life-giving. People's lives depend upon their organs functioning well. And tonight, of course, we are speaking about the governance structures of the organ authority, because we want to increase donation rates, and we want to make sure that all Australians have got the opportunity to receive very precious donations of organs to allow them to continue to live. And the Greens are very concerned, as Senator Siewert outlined in her contribution, about the fact that it appears that our rates of organ donations are in decline. There aren't enough organs available for all Australians who need them. And what I want to talk about particularly tonight is what the consequences of that are. And not only does it mean that people just can't get their kidneys, hearts, lungs, other organs, other tissues to enable their lives to be extended and to enable them to be healthy and well, but I'm very disturbed that this lack of organs being available in Australia is fuelling a disturbing practice that is the unethical procurement of organs overseas, and the possibility that some Australians may be receiving these organs, potentially unwittingly. I'm very pleased that earlier today the Senate agreed to a motion put forward by Senator Abetz and myself. There's not much that Senator Abetz and myself agree on, but we agreed on this one, regarding this matter. And the Senate agreed today that the Australian government should consider making it an offence to travel overseas to receive an organ acquired from a non-consensual donor, and that it should also establish a register of Australians travelling overseas to receive transplants, including details on the country that they receive them in. And I sincerely hope that the government takes this recommendation seriously. I've got no doubt that the overwhelming majority of people find the notion of organ harvesting abhorrent. It brings to mind a fictional dystopian future and not something that should be occurring in the world today. I mean, just think of what it means. Organ harvesting. I mean, people unwillingly having a kidney removed, which means they would probably survive that process, but it's also other organs. It's hearts and it's lungs. People being killed for their organs. We know that organ harvesting from non-consensual donors is occurring. It's happening particularly in China in 2016, and it's been going on for years. And since the 1990s, there have been reports and evidence of forced organ procurement in China. And these organs come from executed prisoners and prisoners of conscience, mostly Falun Gong practitioners, Tibetans, Uyghur people and Christians. And researchers estimate that as many as 1.5 million victims have had their organs harvested for China's transplant industry. In 2005, China admitted to harvesting organs and said it would reform its practices. But in 2010, the director of the China Organ Donation Committee told The Lancet that more than 90% of transplanted organs still came from executed prisoners. In late 2014, China announced it would switch to a completely voluntary donation-based system and has said that reports that the practice continues are factual and baseless. But you only need to look at the evidence, and we had the world experts who have been delving into this evidence, Canadians David Matas and David Kilgore, who were at Parliament House this week. And the evidence that they presented is very, very compelling. I mean, the evidence they show that China can't be meeting its needs on a voluntary basis alone, given that between 2012 and 2013, only around 1,400 people signed up to donate. And from looking into all the hospital records of the transplant hospitals in China, David Matas and David Kilgore estimate that there are between 60,000 and 100,000 transplants occurring every year. So we've got 1,400 people signed up to donate versus 60,000 to 100,000 transplants occurring every year. And even if you say that, OK, it's just from executed prisoners, so you may as well use those donations, again, we've got very limited information from the Chinese government as to how many prisoners they execute each year, but the estimates are that it's in the order of probably around 1,000 to 2,000, again, nowhere near meeting the 60 to 100,000 transplants that it's estimated are occurring each year. So I'm really deeply concerned that Australians may be driving this practice, unwittingly or not. And it's bringing it back to the legislation that we are discussing today. We need to be increasing the number of organs that are available in Australia so that Australians do not feel that this is their only hope of gaining an organ to allow them to continue to live. There's limited data available on how many Australians are travelling to China to receive organ transplants, but according to the Australian and New Zealand Dialysis and Transplant Registry, there were 53 Australians who travelled to China to receive transplants between 2001 and 2014. But it's acknowledged that these figures could be drastically underreported because we don't have any registration. I mean, all of these Australians, they might have family members in China who are acting as donors, but it seems unlikely. It seems it's probably likely, sadly, that they are contributing to terrible human rights abuses of Chinese prisoners and persecuted minorities, whether they're doing it intentionally or not. So the motion that Senator Abetz and I moved earlier today was asking the government to consider making it offence to travel overseas to receive an organ acquired non-consensually, which is what Spain and Israel and Taiwan have already done. And we're also asking the government to consider establishing a register of Australians who receive organs overseas so that we have a better understanding of how Australians might be contributing to this awful practice. So we want those actions with regard to Australians travelling overseas. Coming back to home, we want the actions to encourage whatever way we can for Australians to be giving the gift of life and to be donating their organs. So I will conclude by urging all Australians to consider joining the Organ and Tissue Donation Register. It really is the gift of life that you can give to one of your fellow Australians. And when you have registered, please take the time to talk to your friends and family about your wishes so that they know your intentions should the very worst happen. Thank you.